From the Russ Center for Media in downtown Cape Girardeau, welcome to a special edition of Focus on Southeast, a monthly program on issues and events impacting the campus of Southeast Missouri State University. I'm Dan Woods with KRCU Public Radio. Today we'll be discussing Southeast's new Will-to-Do Award, a need-based scholarship to fill the gap in eligible Pell students' unmet tuition and general fees beginning in fall 2020. We'll be talking with Southeast President Carlos Vargas, Matthew Kearney, Director of Student Financial Services, and Matthew Rolwing, President of the Student Government Association. We'll learn why the university is offering the award, which students are eligible, and more. And we'll begin our discussion in just a moment.
Hi! Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right.
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
Welcome back to Focus on Southeast. I'm Dan Woods with KRCU Public Radio. Today we're discussing Southeast's new Will-to-Do Award, a need-based scholarship to fill the gap in eligible Pell students' unmet tuition and general fees beginning in fall 2020. We're talking today with Southeast President Carlos Vargas, Matthew Kearney, Director of Student Financial Services, and Matthew Rolwing, President of the Student Government Association. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Dr. Vargas and I are here every month, but you folks are new, so Matthew Rolwing, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what you're doing here at Southeast.
So, like you said, my name is Matthew Rolwing. I'm actually from the Southeast region. I'm from a small town south of Cape called East Prairie, Missouri. Graduated high school there in 2015. Came up to Southeast, and I've been here. This is going into my 5th year here. So I'm what some people like to call a super senior, and I'm having a super time here. So I'm majoring in corporate communications, double minoring in HR and management. Absolutely love it. I've been a part of student government for 3 years. I'm a part of Phi Delta Theta, which is a fraternity on campus. I also serve as the IFC Vice President of Community Service and Philanthropy for the Greek life side, and then I'm involved in the community with Boys and Girls Club and also work at the Show Me Center, so pretty involved.
I would ask what you do in your free time, but I don't think you have much.
No, really don't, but you know, keeps me out of trouble, so I like it.
That's wonderful. Matthew, tell us about what you do here at Southeast.
Yeah, so I'm the Director of Student Financial Services. I've been back at Southeast for about 18 months now. I'm actually a graduate of Southeast a couple times over, and was not nearly as busy as Matt was in my undergrad career, but still got involved quite a bit, and loved it so much that had the opportunity to come back, like I said, about 18 months ago to head up our Student Financial Services office.
Wonderful. So we're going to talk about the Will-to-Do Award, and Dr. Vargas, we'll start with you and talk about, I guess, the big picture. This is a major announcement that the university made to help students be able to afford to go to college, right?
Yes. And this is something that is the result of conversations that we've been having for some time. You know, how do we make the ability to go to college more real for students? And so having conversations with Matt and some of the students, trying to figure out how to do that. And so we came up with this idea of the Will-to-Do Award, which is, I think Matt can speak about that, but it is so critical these days to give students an opportunity to go to college. It continues to be a change agent in terms of the ability for students to be successful. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to do as much as we can to make the college degree affordable to our community.
Is it fair to say that things are more competitive now in higher education, and so universities are really positioning themselves to be attractive to students because everybody's trying to get students, more and more students in their institutions, right?
That is correct. And part of what's happening too is we're recognizing that students graduate with a large amount of debt. At the national level right now, the debt is reaching $1.5 trillion in the last number that I saw. And so how do we make college accessible to the students is so important. So it is really recognizing that we have a responsibility as a public institution of higher education. We have a responsibility to try to help students be successful, be able to achieve something in their college years, and make sure that some students who may think that college is not possible because of the limitations in their finances, that is a reality, that they can do it. They need to certainly do their they need to study, they need to show that they're achieving something, but it's our responsibility to help them get into college and get a degree.
So let's talk about the kind of the nuts and bolts of this, and talk about being Pell eligible. So tell us about how this works, kind of behind the scenes, and how a student can be eligible for a Will-to-Do award.
Sure. So we have several criteria that are required. So a student would, their first step would be to fill out the FAFSA, and they need to do that by March 1st of the year before they were to start here at Southeast. And so once they fill out the FAFSA, that actually, that's the free application for federal student aid, and that actually helps determine whether a student's Pell eligible or not. And so if a student is Pell eligible, it means that they have a high financial need. And so when the FAFSA determines that, we then are sent that information and we package their financial aid accordingly. And so if a student receives their Pell grant and has a 2.75 GPA and are from Missouri, then they're eligible for our Will-to-Do award. And so again, they do need to fill out that FAFSA by March 1, though, to be eligible.
And tell us how important that FAFSA is and that deadline is. I know it's critical that that's filled out.
It is. It's crucial, not just for the Will-to-Do award, but for any aid that's out there that's need-based. Most institutions and most programs have deadlines. And so, like, for instance, the state of Missouri has an Access Missouri grant, which is a need-based grant that's available to Missouri residents if they meet a certain EFC number, which is what the number the FAFSA determines. And so that is a February 1st priority, that deadline to make that. And so students need to make sure that they're aware of all of the different dates that are out there to hit. But that's why we say for any student we talk to, we encourage them to get everything submitted before January 15th, because then that gets everything that hits all dates that might come up if they can get that FAFSA submitted by that time.
The earlier the better.
Absolutely. It opens October 1, so it'll open here in just a few days.
So what prompted the will to, I mean, was there a need that was observed just within Southeast Missouri that we thought there are a lot of students who could be coming if we had a mechanism for them to be able to come? Is that sort of what prompted the creation of the Will-to-Do award?
I think it's a result of recognizing that sometimes students need to be told essentially that it is possible to do it, and we wanted to put our essentially actions behind our words. And so we thought, how do we do that in the most effective way? And one way is to say, look, let us put together some of these resources in a way that it really helps those students that are in the most financial need. And so those are the Pell eligible students, as Matt was saying. And so that's how we started giving shape to this award, and that's where we are right now. So we've talked to students, and many times students need to understand. So financial aid is a complex concept, and the way that it's implemented is something that it's not easy to understand on your own. So you need some help, and so that's what we're trying to do here, to make it very simple for them to grasp that.
Okay, Matt, let's move to you now. So I know you spoke at the press conference when this was announced. What does this type of award mean for students?
This type of award, like Dr. Vargas said, this can really push people to actually come to college. Because I know I would be one of those people that would personally be affected by this award and get to come to college and, not have to worry about having to have all of these jobs and, still get to have all of my organizations and do all of my fun things. But yet this type of award really gives the push for some of those students that might be concerned about, not being able to go to college. We have a lot of people within our mission statement. We want to focus on the development of the region and beyond. And how are we going to do that? We need to reach out to the students. We have to reach out to these future Red Hawks, and in order for them to be able to come here, they have to feel welcomed and they have to feel like they're wanted. Us saying that we're not going to care too much about that and we're going to allow for them to come here and provide this Will to Do award is really groundbreaking, because it's allowing for them not to have to worry about the financial burden that they're possibly going to have to inquire later on, but yet also their parents aren't going to have to worry about that, because oftentimes people find that a little bit struggling, whenever they get that first bill and they're like, Mom, Dad, who's going to help? And then sometimes the parents aren't able to help, and sometimes that's whenever you have those students that have to go out and get the jobs. You look at my executive board for student government, every single person on my executive board has a job. Everyone except one person has at least 2 to 3 jobs on my executive board. Us as the executive board are supposed to be the reflection of the student body. That's a big statement, and that's one of the things that Dr. Vargas came in and he just asked us about during our student government summer retreat was, how many of you guys have a job? And the hands raising up just surprised all of us, but yet also surprised him, because you gotta think we're supposed to be the representation, and we're having to sit there and get these jobs so that way we can make these payments and all of these things. It's a reality now where, college isn't as cheap as it used to be way back when, and things just in general aren't as cheap as they used to be. And so people are having to do certain steps, take certain steps to be able to fill those gaps. And this award is definitely one of those things that's filling a huge gap for a lot of people.
So when you saw those hands go up, what did you think?
Well, it was essentially a confirmation of something that I hear about as I walk and I talk to people, how many students are actually working. There are 2 things that I have to say. First of all, I said that to them at the time, I don't know that I could have really been able to go to college and have the jobs that they have 1 or 2 or even 3 jobs, and at the same time do your academics. It's tough. It's very, very difficult. And the second thing that I recognized at the time is I couldn't have gone to college if I had to pay. When I went to college, I didn't have anything to pay. It was similar to this Will to Do award. That allowed my parents to send me to college. Without that, I couldn't have done it. So I'm an example of somebody who was able to be successful to some degree by having this opportunity to go to college without having to pay for it.
So this really resonated with you personally.
Absolutely.
When you saw it.
Yes.
It's amazing to me. I mean, I had one job when I was in school here, but I can't imagine having 2 or 3. That just is amazing to me.
And back to my sophomore year, whenever I was still living on campus and everything like that, the thing what the financial aid package does whenever you fill out your FAFSA is it looks at everything that's happening at home, but yet you look at the things that are happening at home with people nowadays. The students that we have in high schools and everything like that, they're going out and they're getting jobs a lot more earlier on than they used to. And so that's one of the things that it doesn't necessarily take a look at is where all of the parents' money is going. And, especially if you have medical issues going on, you have someone that's had an accident in the family or a death in the family, it looks at just that number. And I think with this Will to Do award, it's not just saying that we're going to look at you as a number, but we're looking at you as a human being. And we understand that you might have things going on and you might not be able to ask your parents for money because they're having to send money somewhere else or they're having to pay for things at home. And so it's a great thing, because my sophomore year I had 3 jobs at one point in time, and so I was constantly working, and then throwing on a full-time student and all of the other organizations that I was trying to be a part of, I was struggling. Like, I have no problem admitting that. And so something like this would have definitely helped me out in that time of the struggle.
Well, one of the things it sounds to me like you probably mastered is time management.
I'd like to think that at times, except when some deadlines creep up, they get a little scary, but time management is definitely one of the things that I've been able to kind of gain a better understanding of since.
It's a good life skill to have, but it's
Absolutely.
not something you would have necessarily chosen at
No,
the
not at
intensity
all.
level you're at.
For sure.
Well, let's take a short break. When we come back, I want to talk about just how it's being funded, and are there a limitless number of will-to-do awards and those type of things. So we'll take a short break. We'll continue our conversation in just a moment. This is Focus on Southeast. Stay tuned.
Hi, Meals on Wheels.
I'm Marco. I'm a college student and I volunteer as a driver for Meals on Wheels.
I think it's awesome meeting these people. I mean, they're so interesting. They've had so many wonderful experiences in life. Your community helps to raise you up into the person that you become. Meals on Wheels is a great way to give back to that community.
Fast-paced family life in need of a slowdown?
Hello, I'm Dr. Spruce. Did you know all those green shapes on maps are parks and forests? It's true. Visit discovertheforest.org and plan to visit a park or forest near you, instead of just wondering what it would have been like.
While the word forest might make you think of distant lands from far, far away, please note parks and forests are closer than you think, which means things like beautiful scenery, fresh air, and family time are also closer than you think.
Power comes from what you do. You're not a spectator to your future. You set the course. You apply all the grit and the talent and the sweat and the passion you can muster, because this is not the next step. It's the biggest step. You believe in the work and the why. You're here to push the limits, build networks, build friendships, break boundaries. This is Southeast Missouri State University.
Welcome back to Focus on Southeast. I'm Dan Woods with KRCU Public Radio. I'm joined today by Southeast President Carlos Vargas, Matthew Kearney, Director of Student Financial Services, and Matthew Rolwing, President of the Student Government Association. We're discussing Southeast New Will to Do Award. So Matthew, let's talk a little bit about how the award is funded. Let's go there next.
So we had some need-based scholarship programs that we had been using for several years that were really tied to students that were not receiving a merit scholarship. And so what changed, though, is we have our new Copper Dome scholarship program, which really altered our scholarshiping and what we do for students. And so we went from scholarshiping about 25 to 30% of our incoming students to now we're over 70% of our incoming students are receiving a merit award of some kind.
That's a huge change.
It is. It's a pretty big shift in what we do and kind of who we're trying to help out when it comes to our needy student population. And so with that change, though, it led to a lot fewer students who had financial need that would be eligible for this award, because if they got a merit award, they weren't necessarily eligible for this other award. So we took those dollars and we reallocated those to this Will to Do award program. And so we're expecting to have over 900 applicants to the university for next fall that would meet the Will to Do criteria. And based on the incoming students for this current fall semester, we're expecting to have at least that number for the next year and hopefully more. And so it is what they call a last dollar program. So what that means is we take any federal, state, or other institutional aid and basically we count all that up. And if there's a gap between that amount and then the tuition and general fees amount for the student, then the Will to Do award will fill that gap. there could be students that receive enough in federal, state, and other institutional aid that they might not have a gap because of what our cost is and what their aid is. And so we might have a lot of students that would be eligible for the Will-to-Do Award but might not necessarily receive dollars for this year. But if they're Will-to-Do eligible as a freshman, they're good throughout their entire time here at Southeast for the 4 years that it's renewable for. So if, let's say in the sophomore year, something happens and maybe they lose a scholarship or something changes in their finances where they're still Pell eligible but maybe don't receive quite as much aid, it's the Will-to-Do Award is still there to fill that gap.
Okay. We talk about this a lot on this program. We talk about retention and graduation rates. So this is all part, and it has to be part of retention, because if a student comes here, you want them to stay and be successful and graduate, right?
That's correct, yes. And I think increasingly, well, first of all, I would like to say we exceeded our highest retention rate ever, so I think I'm very pleased, and thank you to the students, faculty, and staff at the university. So we're very pleased with that, but it is indeed true. So we don't want a student that came to the university to leave, in particular because sometimes when they leave as a result of some of these financial problems, they leave discouraged, disappointed, and with debt. And I think that's not a very good thing to do. So students these days are having a lot of challenges. I mean, I think the pressures on students that they have compared to the ones that I used to have when I was in college are very different, much more intense, and I think that's part of the reason why we sometimes see some more incidents of mental health issues with the students. So
let's talk about what are some of the pressures that students are facing right now, Matthew?
And just like you said, some of the mental health issues and some of the different things like that, you got to think, social media playing into a role of it as well. But yet, as I mentioned, one of the things that you see a lot of the schools doing nowadays is they're becoming more trauma informed because they're understanding that there's a lot going on at home because there's not a lot of these resources and a lot of things like that people are taking advantage of. And so there's a huge lack there. And then whenever the students come into college, they're just thrown into this little black hole, and then they're sucked in, and they oftentimes they find their way like I did. I found my path and I'm still here, or sometimes they get lost. And so that's one of the big things that how this is being helpful, as well as the different opportunities that Southeast has to offer, is it keeps the students on track versus just kind of losing their path. And so that's one of the big huge things is ultimately we have a vision and we're seeing that and we're going through with that, because it's one of the awful things is if you have vision but no sight, is it's perfectly fine, because as long as you have that vision, you know where you're going, you know what you're going to do, and you're going to get there.
So do you talk to a lot of students who are struggling, and when they heard about this were really excited that this was going to be something that was going to be available to folks here and coming down the pipe? I mean, was this something that was a lot of excitement in the student?
Absolutely. I got a lot of feedback actually from back at home from students that were like, oh my God, this is so cool. Even some counselors from the local schools and stuff like that were like, this is something that we need to advertise, because it's something where so many people are eligible for this and are going to be able to reap the benefits of it, and college is going to be able to be a reality for these students. It's no longer just going to be a what if, or well, I could have, but I would have struggled with this. It's going to be a reality. People are going to be able to come here, enjoy themselves, and actually create a good future for them.
So the impact of this, very large impact because the university service region is huge, all of Southeast Missouri.
It is. And I actually was thinking, as Matt was speaking right now, about a group of students that I was talking to one time, and when I was asking them how they were doing, I was trying to understand the dynamics that goes on in their lives, and one of the students actually said, it's very difficult to concentrate on your studies when you receive emails or notifications from the financial aid office that you owe money, that is past due, that you need to pay. It's very difficult to concentrate on your classes when you have that in the back of your mind, and when you see an email and, okay, you haven't paid, you're late, you have to pay. This Will-to-Do Award will address some of that. Not all of it, perhaps, but it will address some of that, and it's just such a difference. We oftentimes tend to think about, well, they should pay, and it's a very cold way of looking at it. But when you think about the fact that one individual that has a life, that has some challenges in their own lives, and they are experiencing these kinds of pressures that we were talking about before, it's not easy to handle.
No, when you think about if there's other things going on at home, it could be medical bills that they're stacking up. There's a lot of things that we don't always see what's going on behind the scenes, right?
No,
Matthew?
absolutely. I mean, working with kids now and, being able to see, them come up to me and them telling me, things that are happening at home and all of these different things, it's really good to be aware of, kind of what possibly could be happening at home. You mentioned medical bills, but it could also be, a family member bouncing back and forth between jail or someone not being in the family, someone not being involved. And so a lot of these kids nowadays are being brought up in a little bit of a shaken up household and, not the stereotypical household that we all see on the movies and the TVs. And so, it's a real shame to see that. But yet, kind of going back to what Dr. Vargas said, about getting the emails from Student Financial Services and, kind of not being able to be focused on your classes, but yet also like being worried about what's going on at work and, being worried about, oh, well, when's my next shift or, anything like that, or, getting emails from work saying, hey, I need you to get all of this stuff done because, some of our students, they have full-time jobs and are working towards, their future career while still going to school and still having to worry about that job to make that next payment. Something like this is really closing that gap.
And we've got a couple minutes left, but one of the things that comes to my mind in navigating all of this, the financial aid and everything else, that's support net. Isn't that sort of a way to help students with a lot of different things on campus, to sort of just somebody to kind of hold your hand along the way, because there's a lot of things that happen. You're like, who do I talk to? What do I do next?
Support net is a mechanism to help us address that, to make sure that we are more in contact with the students in a more effective way, but not only one particular office, but a number of different offices. And I think that we're hoping that that kind of network will be helpful.
Very important. Before we go, Matthew, so if folks have questions or they want to learn more about the Will to Do Award, what's the best way for them to find out more?
So we have a website, cmo.edu/will-to-do-award, and so it has all the information there regarding the eligibility criteria and the renewal criteria. Also, we have a link to it on our SFS, Student Financial Services webpage as well. So if you go to cmo.edu/SFS, that'll get you there as well as other information about financial aid.
A lot of good information. Matthew Rolwing, Matthew Kearney, Dr. Vargas, thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It was very nice.
Focus on Southeast is a collaboration of KRCU Public Radio and the Department of Mass Media here at Southeast Missouri State University. From the Russ Center for Media, I'm Dan Woods with KRCU Public Radio. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to tune in next time when we focus on Southeast.